This week's big review really is a big review. It's NOVO Modern Strings from Heavyocity. It's quite a large library with a lot of different functionalities, so bear with me and I'll try and go through it in detail as speedily as I can. Now, first off, there seems to have been a flurry of experimental string libraries released lately, and I've looked at quite a few of them in the last few weeks. Heavyocity's NOVO Modern Strings claims to make strings new again, so let's see how it stacks up. Essentially, it's a 40GB or so library of orchestral strings running in Contact Player 5.6.6 or later. The library is distinctly split into traditional patches and evolved patches, each of which have completely different functionality, so let's have a look at each of those in turn. First up, the traditional instruments. Now, as a composer, I know I have, and you probably have as well, probably got a good arsenal of strings in your collection already. So what's different about the ones in NOVO? Well, basically nothing really. The samples here are competent, they're reasonably dry recordings of violin, viola, cello and bass sections, with articulations you'll mostly be familiar with. There's sustains, legato, tremolo, spiccato and pizzicato. The cellos and bass also have clusters. You can switch between the articulations with the upper or lower key switches, and on the interface there are dozens of options for envelope shaping, EQ, filters, arpeggio functions, and lastly space, which is delay and reverb. There's some neat interface options for round robin and bowing selection too. I liked particularly that the EQ and filter tweaking could be applied to individual mic positions and articulations. I found this very useful for getting smooth longs and spiky staccatos out of the same instrument. What was a bit weird is that neither the violins nor the violas had any kind of cluster effects, which the cello and the bass did, but it's not something I use an awful lot of anyway, so I'll give that a pass. The traditional strings are basically a set of workhorse strings with good functionality and a decent but not spectacular sound. So let's now get on to what I think is really the most interesting aspect of NOVO, the evolved patches. You've got a string designer and loop designer here. These are two big patches where you can create mutated string pads and loops. They operate a little differently from one another, so let's take a look at the string designer first. It's got hundreds of well-designed presets which combine three source sounds and then run them through a variety of complex effects and macros to shape the sound. Now, unfortunately, I don't have time here to go into exactly how all this works, but let me point out a few of the features that I really did like. You can adjust the mapping for the high, mid and low sections yourself, leading to lots of disco light-up fun if you've got a complete control keyboard. The cycle menu can be used to create some wild granular synthesis type behaviour as well. I've got to point out the central knob, which controls the macro behaviour of envelope, EQ, filter, drive, gating and reverb, and this can be automated as well as controlling it manually from the mod wheel. It's great to see the punish and twist knobs have also made a return from previous Heavyocity libraries. To sum up, the string designer is great and highly customisable, and it's really got some emotional, evocative pads and sounds in there. The second patch, the loop designer, I had even more fun with, and I could see it being very useful for my kind of work. It's similar to the string designer in terms of functionality, but instead of long sounds, here you've got performed string loops which sync to tempo. A lot of ostinato, played both forwards and reversed, and there's all sorts of different mutated effects as well. If you've ever played with Heavyocity Gravity before, or any of the Gravity packs, it's a bit like that. You can use the key ranges to play different loops, and you can also, in this case, change the root key with the lower red keys. I found that very useful and something that had been missing on some of the previous Gravity packs. All the macro and effects functions have been retained from the string designer, and try as I might, I really couldn't make the engine misbehave. It's very solid, so I really like that. There was no crashing out. A couple of things I would have liked to have seen: some randomisation options for a start, and an easier way of selecting the loops rather than the drop-down menus. All of these would have been quite good time savers. So what to make of Heavyocity NOVO? Well, here's my conclusion as I see it. With several mutated string libraries having been released over the last few weeks, NOVO does really well to stand out from the crowd through impressive scripting, a mostly intuitive interface, and some pretty innovative loops. Most composers probably won't get much out of these traditional string patches, as they'll already have plenty of strings in their arsenal. Having said that, if you do choose to use those patches, you'll be pretty pleased. The samples are solid and the interface very functional. For my money, the string and loop designer patches is where the good stuff is at. You'll have to judge for yourself though whether the over $500 price tag adds enough to your templates that it's worth making the investment in NOVO. Thank you so much for watching. That's just a small taste of the Samplecast, a weekly podcast and YouTube show for sample library geeks and plugin enthusiasts. You can find out more information at thesamplecast.com. Don't forget to subscribe.